go back to um, our neuroscience. So before we, introduce ourselves, you basically want to just be present. And this is a reminder of a walk that I took where if I wasn't being present, I wouldn't have noticed this rock in the path, which happened to say, "You are here," which started me on this whole rock painting journey, which is a different story. But I also put a picture here to make Ty smile of some of her dogs. Aren't they adorable with their matching things? And like we're a little dog obsessed and pet obsessed this week. So thanks for tapping into your inner hero and shero. Like Ty said, names have power, posture has power. You can practice your superhero posture, which we also do in our Zoom training. And we're going to introduce ourselves and get started in our neuroscience of stress and the roots of self-care. This is the first module of our tree training, and we're so excited that you're with us here today. So let's talk about who we are. Ty, who are you?
Hello again, everyone. My name is Taisha, or Ty Powell. I'm a former educator and former instructional coach. I'm a CEO of a yoga studio right now, and I started yoga a while ago, maybe like 4 years ago. And yoga literally saved my mental health as an educator, just burning out, not taking care of myself. It was an interesting journey, and being in that hot room, hot yoga, and doing that experience forced me to face myself, forced me to face my rumblings, forced me to take a deeper look at me and get down to the root of my own self-care and my own self-growth. So, a lot of people say, yeah, get into yoga for mindfulness, but it was more than just going in and doing the yoga. It was really engulfing myself in the practice and the growth that came through it, and analyzing myself and doing the work that comes with putting myself in those uncomfortable postures, putting myself in those uncomfortable positions, just like in life, and recognizing that, hey, you know what? It's only for a couple of seconds, couple minutes. Release, breathe, and I can jump right back in. So I learned a lot from this yoga practice, but I'm a native Baltimorean. And just like you, I am a student of this work. I am rumbling with my own anxiety and growing in that area as well too, with yoga and with some of the tools that you're going to see here today. So I don't just push this and preach this information. I actually do a lot of the work that we're going to talk about today. So I'll pass it over to Susan.
Awesome. I love hearing about Ty's yoga story because, all of us who practice in some way have some story and way that it changed us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I spent 25 years in the nonprofit arena working for Environmental Working Group and Playworks DC and Kaboom and others, and caused a lot of stress, experienced a lot of stress, was a fundraiser, so there was a lot of deadline and money stress. I'm an obliger, which means I'm really good at other people's goals that are externally set, but I'm not so good at setting and achieving my own goals, which is a lot of us, and actually in the world and in the nonprofit sector. Ty's a questioner, so we have good balance on our team in many ways. I'm also from Baltimore, so we have less balance there, but we both have a lot in common in terms of wanting to take the tools that we've learned from wellness and are still practicing and learning every day and transmitting them in a digestible way to our sectors in the nonprofit world and the education world. And Ty and I actually met doing the nonprofit wellness pilot, which resulted in our wellness equity report, which is available for free on our website, where we came up with this concept that basically those who have the most stress need the most stress relief or wellness services. And certainly nonprofits and teachers fall into that category. Many of you on this call are nonprofiteers. And we think you're great at taking care of other people, but you're not always so great at taking care of yourselves like us. So we're going to teach more team care aspects. We're going to challenge you to come up with ideas that can be supported by other people and implemented by you. And we're going to ask you to take on new challenges of stress management because we're in an unprecedented time. And just like we're rumbling with all of this stuff ourselves, we want to challenge others and coach others in coming up with new challenges for yourselves. Just like Ty talked about on the yoga mat or in the hot room or in our physical endeavors, like when we challenge ourselves, we realize we can do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says. And that's a really important stress cycle to complete in your body and a really important mental cycle to complete in your head. So goals, that's Ty's court.
Awesome. So the teacher and me always want to make sure you have your objectives so you know where we're headed. So today we're going to dig a little deeper and introduce the neuroscience of stress and tree metaphor. Then we're going to review the rooted tools to spark self-care and team care, and then finish up with where we practice some new physical and mental health strategies for you. So hopefully you'll leave here with some tools. As Susan stated earlier, please note that we are recording, so, your cameras are optional, but we do ask that you please, please, please engage with us. And if you can cut your cameras on, we would love to see your beautiful smiling faces, but again, not mandatory. And please make sure you stay active, stay engaged, and stay present with us today.
Well, here's, where I get to talk about all the things that are stressing us out. And it's not pretty because we already had, as the cartoon we showed the other day, we already had stress in our jobs every day. And now this year, 2020, so many things have piled up. And when we look at all of the stress that's piling up, if you're a parent, if you are a child, if you are a Black American, if you are any person of color, if you are in the LGBT community, if you are experiencing divorce or personal relationship issues, if you have a food intolerance, if you are worried about climate change, like there are so many ways that we can now be stressed out, not to even mention the political cycle, that we are under a constant state of stress.
And I really think, when we do this, we have to stop. We have to stop. That was a lot of information there. And I physically felt the stress coming off the screen right now, right? So let's just take a minute. I know all of these things are going on, but let's just breathe. Big inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Okay. This session right now is about engineering these mindful moments. Okay. We are going to stop and breathe through all of this, right? Remember, we are here for you. We are here in this moment. So let's get back to these mindful moments and let's talk about the trees. And trees, trees are our thing, Susan. Like our next meeting actually probably should be under a tree, social distance, you know, underneath a tree, because the tree is where we are learning that we need to dig deeper and find out the roots behind that. Let's talk a little bit about that, Susan.
Sure. So this is the new handout. We've been refining this thanks to your feedback, and we've been doing these sessions since last December. And this is our latest version where we tie our self-care prescription and the immune boosters to the roots of self-care and team care that we're focused on first, right? Because we have to ground ourselves in the things that give us sustenance, the nutrients, and literally the things that care for the rest of our bodies and the rest of our lives. And so, our focus today's session will be on those roots of self care and team care. How do we get our personal stress prescription and our immunity, tuned up? And then we'll talk in later sessions about the stressor scorecard and how that can touch on other conversations around equity and privilege and circumstance. We'll talk about the team care aspects that this tree metaphor goes through with the core values and the way you change habits and the way you appreciate and change things through your trunk. And then the branches of resilience, right? The stressors and joys that make up our lives, and that sometimes we can't control the wind that blows us. So we have to learn how to react to it. And, that's what the rest of our sessions will be about. So that's sort of our latest attempt at tying our different tools to this metaphor of a tree. But Ty, what is it? I added some things. So I'm curious, we added some different leaves. I'm curious what that speaks to for you.
So for me, as I was looking at this, and this is something that I'm personally doing for myself right now, and realizing that there are some things in my life that bring me joy and bring me stress. And I'll give you the perfect example. I was having some stress at work. And my therapist said, dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper. How are you showing up? So it it forced me to look at my core values. How am I showing up? Who am I in this space? Is it the job or is it something within me? And as I started digging through my core values, and I had to also look at the roots. Where is this narrative coming from? Where is this feeling of stress coming from? And that's when I had to pull out my prescription card, which we'll get into shortly. And I had to realize in myself, or reflect on myself, what are those things that I need to increase in my life? And what are those things that I need to decrease to help me with my stress? What are those things I need to increase putting into my body? Because what I put into my body also impacts my mood, also impacts my mind, impact my body. So digging down to the root of it can also take a stressor and turn it back into a joy, or turn it into a joy overall. So I really love how we've played and really tweaked this for ourselves here.
Well, that's the fun part, is getting feedback from everybody. So we look forward to hearing how you'll use it. And some of the inspiration for this tree metaphor came from reading books like The Overstory and The Hidden Life of Trees, where we learn more about how roots interconnect, and how diverse forest, has interconnectedness with the gases that the leaves release on the trees, and the electronic charges through the roots and the mushrooms, the fungal network that ties it all together. There's amazing metaphors that we could make all day long about diverse forests and diverse teams, and how a person is like a tree. And we'll get into a few of those later too with the brain science. But so we love playing with this metaphor. We would love to hear how it speaks to you. And most of all, we want to help you interconnect your roots of self-care with others to make that, diverse forest floor of team care that we all need to sustain ourselves in this work.
So let
So should we go ahead and launch our poll?
Yeah, so I want to take a minute and gather some information right now. This is one of the ways that we like to engage you in our sessions, but also, again, gathering information. And this is also a strategy that you can use in a lot of your meetings too. Instead of always using a chat, or, take your phone off mute, this is data that you can collect and data that you can keep. So we want to have some data so that we know how to curtail this session, but it's also a good way of asking questions to open up the mind to that appreciative inquiry, just by asking someone how they're doing today in various ways. So you see the poll coming up right now. And if you can, go ahead and start clicking away and answering that question in a poll for us. And we will go over it a little bit. So the question says, I've done these things today. Look at that. Look at that. I am jealous of these people that got good sleep. I'm very jealous of that. They definitely do not have an infant in the house.
No, that's something that you can't really look forward to for a while. Maybe good sleep, but not enough sleep.
There it
So
is.
when do you want to end this? I got to shut it down at some point. Nobody's eating a mushroom, by the way.
And I'm going to talk about that. I was waiting for that one. We got about 5 more seconds here. 3, 2, and 1. Let's go ahead and end the poll. Susan, I want to point out yet again, no one ate mushrooms, and I'm going to talk about that. Got outside, or no one got outside today out of the people that answer, but I do love to see that people exercise and laugh today and different things like that. Got out and slept, ate veggies already. I'm saving my veggies for dinner.
The petted animal pets.
And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why we like to gather this information, because I like to pull on this information, and Susan and I like to pull on this data and this information as we go through our sessions. And we're also going to use the chat box today. We use this as icebreaker, so feel free to chat us anything. Susan and myself will be monitoring the chat and getting to your questions if you have any as we go along as well too. But some of the things that we had you reflect on kind of connects with our personal prescription scorecard, which we have coming up next.
Yeah, and I just wanted to apologize. I thought the poll was multiple choice, but people could only click on one, so they might not have chosen all of the things that they did but only one showed up. So my apologies that wasn't set up the right way. So here's the personal stress prescription, and notice the roots.
Yes. So the personal stress prescription is where I normally start. It is the root of everything. What is it inside of me that I need to prescribe myself? I am a very holistic person, and this is something that Susan gave to me early on when her and I started meeting. Because I'm like, I'm not taking Tylenol, forget that Tylenol, but there are things that I can do to actually help with that headache or to help with that pain management and things like that. And one of the things on there is sleep and rest. So hey, mate, how often do I need to get more sleep and rest based on my day and stuff? What about hydration and nutrition? If I'm having that headache, is that something that I need to increase in? So this personal stress prescription is something, like I said, it is super important, and you should use this, and you can find it on our website here as well too. I personally like to keep it on my refrigerator, just like you would keep your medicines on your nightstand or different things like that. It's something that I see every day, and I'm looking at it on a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis. Like, hey, you know what? I got that spirituality thing down. Every Sunday I'm on my virtual, you know, preaching session or things like that. So maybe I can, keep that constant, but I need to pick up on my play and joy. Maybe I need to play a little bit more to increase my or decrease my stress here. So this is a powerful, powerful tool. And to go with that, once you create this prescription for yourself, then you have to look at, how do I now fill this prescription? What are the tools, Susan and Todd, that I can use, or what's that medicine that you can prescribe for me to help in this area? And what we like to give you is the 15 immune boosters. While these are not the only medicines, we'll give you a lot of them. The 15 immune boosters are some of the tried and true research ways that you can help reduce your stress. Get outside, get outside, get outside. I enjoy sitting on my deck. I'm not going to go through all 15, but I'm going to go through a couple of them. But get outside, everybody. Vitamin N, vitamin nature, vitamin D. You're going to fill this prescription by getting outside, walk around a block, or just sitting on your deck or your porch. Get outside. Eating those green leafy veggies. That's super important. What you're putting into your body is super helpful. Right now, what I'm hanging on to, Susan, my essential oils. I have my diffuser sitting right here. It's going for me. Got a little cheap small one at my desk right now. Essential oils can change a mood, and there are healthy benefits to that. Susan, I have to tell you this, quick pause real quick. I went to Costco yesterday, and for some reason they have all this fungi everywhere, dried fungi, you know, there it is. Um, they, Caesar has this whole spill on trying to get me to eat more mushrooms, all the benefits. And I tell her every time there are 14 other immune boosters on there that I will try. That is not one. I literally picked up a bag of mushrooms to get you and could not bring myself to buy them. That's how nasty they are to me. But they're great immune boosters here. We do this presentation in English and Spanish, so we can do this in multiple ways for you. But hopefully you're looking at this, thinking about ways that I can increase these immune boosters to also decrease my stress. With that, number 4 says workout and dance. So I think this is a perfect opportunity because I only saw a couple workouts in there to get up and work out. Now, I normally like to get in squats because squats are the thing that you're doing all day. You're going from that seated to standing position a day, but I'm doing something a little new today. So before we get into the next part of that session, I'm going to give you some exercise today. So everyone stand up for me, push back from your computer, stand up, not too much, not too much. I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to give you 3 variations of high knees, okay? So the very first thing I want you to do, just loosen up. You're gonna stand up straight, get that posture. Grab your right leg, pull it up, hold it for our 3 breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Maybe you want to roll your ankles around while you're doing this. And switch legs. Hold that posture, pulling your belly button in, standing up nice and straight, pulling that knee into your chest. This is going to get some blood circulating, loosen up those hip flexors, loosen up your thighs, your glutes, your back, your abs, your obliques. Okay, so do that one more time. Pull it up and switch. This is exercise. Now, if you want to take it up a level, put your hands here, and we're just going to bring your knee up to your hands. Put it about, a little above your belly button. Bring your knee up, nice and slow, nice and controlled. I'm at 4. We're going to get 10 of those in. You could do this in any meeting. You could do this on the hour. My computer yells out the hour to tell me to get up and do this. Okay, and if you're feeling real good, add some music and do this with me, and we're gonna add a little pace to it, okay? So make sure your feet are about hip width distance apart. Make sure you're standing up straight, and we're gonna go a little faster, okay? I'm gonna count it out. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Come on. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, good. Now stretch it out. Grab that leg from the back. You can use both hands. Stand up straight. Take some deep inhales, exhale. You might have got your heart rate going a little bit. When you're ready, switch legs. Stretching out those quads, those glutes. Maybe you've been sitting too long. Thank you. Give yourself a round of applause. You didn't have to get up and do that. I'm proud of you today. Okay. These are simple exercises. I can get up and get myself moving. It wakes me up a little bit, and my hips are feeling a lot. I didn't realize I needed that, Susan. I kind of needed that. My hips were getting tight sitting there. These are things I want you to do. Just quick strategies. You can even throw this into a meeting. Everybody stand up. Let's just do some high knees. Let's just do some squat. You can do this while you're in the meeting. A lot of you don't have your cameras on anyway. We can't see. So you can do this while your camera's off. Susan like to do it while her camera is on. Just bust out in a workout in the middle of our meeting. That's excellent multitasking.
There was a question in the chat box about limited mobility, and we do a whole, like a chair yoga class, but there are also many things like hastasana is just arms up, that if you have, even when you're sitting, you can be in chair pose or sitting in a real chair, lifting your arms against the normal flow of gravity is really releases your blood in a different way and uses your arms. And even just from holding it up like that, like I get a tingling in my arms. So there's a lot of different ways using the chair and standing. Oh, and Ty's showing like using the chair and sitting, doing knees up. Nice.
I'm a fitness instructor. We have ton of workouts and different levels, different modifications. And Susan will talk about that. We do skill workshops. So believe me, I can take you all the way up and down in so many different ways. But the goal here, if you want to hit the next slide, the goal here is that we want to have this rainbow brain happening right now. So look at this picture here. After 20 minutes of sitting quietly, and then after 20 minutes of walking or high knees or different things, look at how the brain flares up here. Okay, movement is very powerful. Exercise itself is a form of stress put on the body, but it's a good kind of stress. It's a good balance. Okay, so our goal here today is to keep that rainbow brain for you. And not only does it combat emotional stress, such as exercise combats emotional stress, but depression, but it can also help you feel more confident. It can help you feel stronger and even help you focus on tasks. Research has shown when you work out before, after, you get information, it helps you retain that information as well too. These are also great ways to get together with people as well too during this time. You can do it online. You can put them on the phone. You both can turn on the same YouTube video and do it together. when you exercise together, when you work out together, there's a bond. You've gone through an experience together. And then you'll be talking about it for days. Like I can't laugh right now, Buttercup, because my abs are sore, right? So I am a strong advocate for exercise, and there are so many different types of exercise, and it is good for everyone, and everyone can do some form of exercise, mental and physical exercise. Susan, can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening in the brain and the neuroscience behind the stress and working out?
Yep, absolutely. Gabby and I have a workout on the YouTube channel where we talk about BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is literally like a sort of a miracle grow for the brain. Like it helps you, like Ty said, retain information. It helps your focus. It helps the synapses form and the dendrites, which we'll talk about, receive more information. So BDNF is a really important thing for your brain health, and exercise creates endorphins. So endorphins are the pain reliever emotionally and physically of our bodies that we make ourselves. Endo means inside. Morphine is the same root as orphan, endorphin, because it acts on the same receptors in our brain. So that's why exercise and dance are effective at combating mild depression, because we're doing similar things that prescription medication do in terms of the brain science, which is really cool. And everybody can do it, whether they have a therapeutic or a pharmaceutical practice or not. And that's all part of the personal self prescription. And we'll talk a little more about stress today in sort of two chunks. And the first chunk is this: that these are old numbers, first of all. we when we started doing these trainings, like, yes, 100% of people experience stress. Yes, 30 to 60% of us experience anxiety and depression. Well, that was before COVID and before monumental stresses of 2020 worldwide. So I'd say those numbers are closer to 60 to 100 now. But only a fraction of adults in the US are actually diagnosed with anxiety or depression, but we all need stress solutions. So that's why we develop these trainings, like taking the best from science and the best from our personal experience, but also relating it to the neuroscience. And so we'll talk today about the social stress solutions, because they're the ones that actually help us the most, that are the toughest to get during a pandemic. And so, as just a few definitions, stressors happen to us all. So stressors come in many forms. We have a scorecard that Ty will describe in a second about it, but that is what happens as a stressor. Stress, though, is actually our choice of how we react. And sometimes that stress is fight or flight, save your life, swerve out of the way of the car that cut you off kind of reaction. And sometimes it's an emotional choice that we're making, an attitude that we're skillfully adjusting in terms of how we react to that stressor. And that's where the practice comes in, right? So that we'll talk about that. And wellness equity, just to define that sort of term, we throw it around because we think we made it up, but it's this pilot study finding that those of us who face the most stressors in society as well as at our work should get the most wellness resources. And so our pilot looked at mostly women, mostly like 82% women, 65% people of color, 54% lower income, folks with invisible disabilities, et cetera, looking at nonprofit workers who were already super stressed and looking at what works for them, because the folks that have the most stress need the most wellness resources. And that's our wellness equity approach. So the tool that we came up with, well, Ty can describe it. We're going to go in depth more with this on November 10th.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan, for that information, and great information as well too. So this is one of the tools that we also like to use. And this one, very similar to the personal stress prescription scorecard, is that now you're looking at how I show up in my workplace, in my life, in my home. And the stressor scorecard talks more about identity. Now that I've identified, hey, what's going on inside of me? What do I need to address? Now, how am I presenting to others? Is my identity causing me stress? Are my circumstances causing me stress? And we normally ask you to, label this 0, 1, or 2, without, judging or anything like that, but to really reflect on where you are with your stressors. And what I love about this, and I, as a former educator, we've seen the ACE scores measuring childhood trauma, but we don't have stress scorecards as adults. So this is a perfect tool to say, hey, look, I have this stress going on, and also to be able to talk to your colleagues about it hey, I have this stress going on. What about you? And have that empathy, have that connection, and then come up with ways together on how we work through this, how we address this as a unit, and have that accountability as well with your team. So you want to add a little bit more about that?
No, that's a good. We'll talk more about it November 10th. That's the Tuesday after Election Day, in a few weeks from now, at same time, 3 o'clock. And so hopefully we'll see some of you back for that, because there's a lot of ways to handle this tool. There's with or without the ACE scorecard, which is a trauma trigger. There's with and without discussion. So we have some tips and some, and we want feedback, and we love actually having folks go through it so that they understand what it's like to sort of unearth this at work, because this is a sensitive thing, right? Talking about your circumstances or your identities. And so we approach this with care, but we also give folks the tools to take it back to your team, because you know how your team can handle certain information better than we do. So we'll talk more about that in a few weeks. But I think I'm just going to do another few minutes on nervous system here so that we can do some of the solutions, Ty, because I want to get them coming up with some of their tools around number 1 and number 4, number 11, I think. So the quick thing that I want to emphasize with the nervous system is that most folks know that there's 3 modes, right? There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. There's safe and social, fight or flight or freeze, right? We've learned that fight or flight is bad, but it saves your life, so it's good. Safe and social is where we really want to be. That's where our brain can learn and plan, and especially kids. Like if you're in the classroom, like kids have to be safe in order to learn. And that's what sort of sparked my inquiry in all of this, was working for Playworks DC and understanding recess and understanding early childhood education and brain formation better. Well, it turns out that the polyvagal theory has been developing over the last few decades, which gives us more information about that safe and social. And the thing I want to emphasize is that the social part is super important to our nervous system. In fact, so the ventral vagal part of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where our safe and social sort of place is, that's where the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve that's really in our torso leading up to our amygdala, our lizard brain, it gathers all this information and decides if we're safe or not. It just neuroceptively, that's the split level decision that our amygdala makes. We don't get a say in it. And we are lacking cues to feel safe from our vagus nerve, because we're only available on a Zoom camera, and you can't hug me, and you can't, like laugh in the same room as me. And so while it's charming in some way, like your nerves are frustrated because it's not getting enough information to feed to the brain to say whether I'm safe or not. So we have to figure out how to get to this safe and social place, even though our vagus nerves don't have the typical inspiration that they should have in normal times. It's such an important part of our safe nervous system, the parasympathetic, like slow down nervous system, that they also call it tend and befriend, because we're tending children and befriending people. And that's like the way that we learn and plan and feel super safe. So that's the nervous system that I think the information that people in this day and age, like during a pandemic and while polyvagal science is burgeoning, can really dip into. There's podcasts about this stuff, and all of our work is sort of geared towards getting up that ladder. Like if you're in fight or flight, emotionally or physically, like how do you complete that stress cycle, lower the cortisol in your system, and get to the space where you can be calm. And box breathing, many of you were with us, was it last week? Time flies, that we did our sampler training. And it's one of my favorite tools. But because some of you have done this with me before, what we're going to do today is actually a variation of box breathing that slows down our nervous system and engages that ventral vagal parasympathetic mode. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. So actually, we'll review. We'll do 2 rounds of 4-sided box breathing, where I'm going to count to 4 and clap, and you're going to breathe and hold, and then exhale and hold. And then we're going to do 2 rounds of 4-7-8 breathing, where you breathe in for 4, take a big deep breath, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. And so I'll clap you through all of this, but go ahead and just sit up straight, so that your breath can be unencumbered. Put your feet on the floor and ground. You can stand up and do this also. And this is just because we're speaking the language of our nervous system. Breathing is the language of our nervous system. So we're practicing a little bit. So breathe everything out to start. Now breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold it. 2, 3. Now breathe out, 2, 3, and pause. Now do it again. In, 2, 3, 4, pause. Now exhale, 2, 3, 4, and pause. So that's box breathing. That was just 2 quick rounds. You can draw the box with your finger if you need a kinesthetic angle to this. You can do like 5 or 10 rounds just to give your brain a tool, a focus, a mantra, which is the counting, and maybe give your body a job. But then you're training your nervous system that, like, okay, everything is balanced, everything is calm. So now we'll do 2 rounds of 4, 7, 8 breathing. So just again, get grounded, take a breath in and let it all out. And take a deep breath in. 1, 2, all the way in. 4. Now hold it. 2, 3, 7, and exhale. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. So breathing in again. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Deep breath. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a lengthened exhalation and a holding of the breath first. And the numbers don't matter so much. You can hold it for 10 and exhale for 15. What matters is that you take a deep breath in and you hold it in to let your heart rate settle, and then you exhale, preferably through the mouth, for as long as possible. I would trick my daughter into thinking it was a competition, and she would go, I can hold it for 12, I can hold it for 14. And her nervous system was just getting more and more or the parasympathetic was getting engaged, which means her body was getting relaxed. So that's a great tool for dealing with physical stress and emotional stress. As the last neuroscience blah blah part of this webinar, physical stress is sort of defined as that like physical injury or trauma to the body that sleep deprivation can cause, Ty. So you are definitely in this category. The balance for that stuff tends to be physical. It's either you sleep more and rest more, or you get needles stuck in you, or chiropractic adjustment, or you lift weights, or you get massage, or you put your body into positions, or you get your heart rate up, right? Those are physical adjustments. Chemical stress to the body might be the wrong nutrients. You're eating the wrong things for your body. It could be a virus or bacterial invasion. It could be allergies that are seasonal. It could be a toxin like a hangover or other intoxicants or other immune challenges. And the kind of balance for chemical stressors is eating different things, eating different times, getting nutraceuticals or enzymes or whatever you need to balance things out that way. But the stress that's causing most of our health problems, and this is crazy, the science says 70 to 80% of our health problems, I mean, the stuff that kills people, besides coronavirus, are caused by emotional stress. And this is where the science, the neuroscience is fascinating, with the brain and gut linkage, the polyvagal science, as well as what we can do to manage our emotional stress. So the stress looks like trauma, fear, all the things on our stressor scorecard, societal oppression, political drama, etc. The balance, though, is all of the things that are on our stress prescription and our immune boosters, and that we talk about and that we practice, and that you might see a therapist about, or that you might have a pharmaceutical approach to as well. But that community and social piece, ooh, that's tough during a pandemic. And we've really got to figure out through Zoom and through new tools how we regulate our cortisol so that we have lower health problems, and how we give our vagus nerve, what it needs to make us feel safe and to have us go into that deep state of sort of ventral vagal parasympathetic relaxation. So this is just to prove you can have a stressful job, and if you know how to take breaks and exercise and eat 7 almonds a night and regulate your cortisol, you too can be healthy even with a stressful job. So I won't talk too much about cortisol today because I want to move on, but know that there's a ton of research done on this stress hormone because it's super simple to detect in saliva. So you don't need a complicated blood draw. So that's why we have a ton of research on cortisol. And yay, that's great because that's the stress hormone. So we know a lot about stress. All right, Ty, I'm going to shut up about neuroscience now, even though you know I love to talk about it. But
Thank
hit me up with any questions in the chat or after.
you, Susan. It is a question in the chat for you.
Okay, sure. I'll talk about that tapping.
So, I don't think you can mention vulnerability or type vulnerability in a Google search without saying Brene Brown. So we would be remiss if we didn't have at least one thing on Brene Brown in here. So this is one of my favorite quotes. There's a lot of mythology about vulnerability, and the big one is that it's weakness. We don't understand that vulnerability is the center of hard emotions, the stuff that we don't want to feel, especially at work. But it's also the birthplace of trust, love, belonging, and courage. So again, as you think about this work that we're doing with ourselves and with team, there has to be trust, there has to be love, belonging, and courage as you're doing this work. I encourage you to, go to the TED Talks, the Netflix special with Brene Brown, and just really start to think about, as we're dealing with everything that's going on, as we're going through the stress and different things, how are you being vulnerable in this space? How are you letting people know, hey, this is where I am, this is how I'm feeling? I have learned in this past, year, to say the phrase, I am not okay. And it is okay to say that phrase, I am not okay. And reaching out and letting people know I am not okay with the political state right now. This is how it's impacting me. I am not okay with the riots or things like that. This is how it's impacting me. This will create a different place and space amongst your work group, amongst yourself. And also it helps get to the root of where this stress, where some of these things are coming from, so that you can then find that right prescription for it. So as we're talking about that, I want to revisit this stress prescription with you here. I'm going to go, Susan and I are going to go through 3 specific ones on here. But again, I'm going to encourage you to go and download this so that you can assess for yourself those areas that you need to work in to decrease your stress. Okay. So the first one I want to talk about is one of my favorites. Susan make me laugh all the time. Susan will find these weirdo memes and different things. I don't even know where you get half this stuff. And she loves sending them to me in a text, and they come at the most random time. And it literally makes me laugh out loud. And God bless if I'm drinking something and it just spews everywhere. I have to be careful opening a text from Susan if I'm drinking something. But laughter strengthens our immune system and our core for that matter, and it create those endorphins. Even a fake laugh create those endorphins that's needed to ward off anxiety and depression and reduce inflammation. So I encourage you, with your teammates, with your family. I have a group text with my family where we pass off silly pictures. Susan and I, with our interns, had one with our pets on there. And again, it created laughter, it created joy, and it just brings a different aspect to your day to break up some of this stress. Again, these are, some of the memes that Susan has sent me, but research shows that when you watch funny, distressful, or spiritual videos, during those funny videos, your brain is actually working. The gamma waves were produced, the same ones achieved during a meditation session. So just like meditation, laughter is technically meditation as well too. So this is, and Susan will get into the pleasure principle, but this is a good way to use your social media. Find those funny things. And Pinterest, contrary to popular belief, is a social media. So get on Pinterest. Just use your social media wisely to find those things that make you laugh.
Well, go ahead and type the things that make you laugh in the chat box. We want some specifics. We always like to get new recommendations out of these trainings. So, like, not just comedy on Netflix, but like a specific Hannah Gadsby Douglas or Barat or Dave Chappelle or whatever that's making you laugh these days. So, so Ty talked about laughter. The pleasure principle, we used to call it this on the actual prescription, but now we broke it down to, I think, screens and intoxicants. But basically, this is our nod to Janet Jackson. As Baltimore children of the 80s, we salute the Jacksons always. But actually, Sigmund Freud came up with this description of the id. And so we use it to talk about the things that, yes, we use them for stress relief. We do these things and we use them for stress relief, right? Carbs and distractions of screens and smoking and drinking. And maybe they are perfectly healthy for us, but maybe they aren't. And maybe we are using them in excess, or maybe we are misusing them or misapplying them in some way. That's not for us to decide. That's for you to decide. And you have to be honest with yourself. But you also, when it comes to that team care thing, you also have to be inclusive, because there are a lot of people that have cut certain things out of their life, like sugar or alcohol or what have you. And then if you serve that at work, or you encourage that through whatever Slack channel, or, then they feel a little bit left out. And so you want to be inclusive. You want to be respectful if somebody is having a dietary issue that they might not want to talk about their bowel or whatever. Then you just go, okay, we're not going to do gluten snacks so that Taisha can eat everything. Great. Or vegans or whatever, right? So that's something that's up to you to figure out with yourself and with your team. And do we have time? I don't know if we have time to bring Dr. Vivek Murthy in.
So I love some of the suggestions that people are putting in here. I'm learning more and more about TikTok. My nieces and nephews are really getting me into it. I still don't have a TikTok account. I'm still trying to manage Instagram and Facebook. But I love the things that make people laugh. The reaction videos, I love that. They actually make me cry though, on some of those. So that's cool. I'm saying RuPaul's Drag Race, a lot of funny things. And this is a list of things that you can even send out to your team, or different things that you can have a list going that you can get people laughing and going. One of my friends have started adding on her signature line what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what I'm laughing at. That's something pretty cool to keep her connected to everyone else, and something that I would have started doing in my emails as well too.
Yeah, I'm just putting our YouTube channel link in the chat box. I think this works for the YouTube channel. And this Vivek Murthy clip is on our YouTube channel somewhere. Basically, we would have played it for you. It's only a minute and a half. We urge you to check it out and check out his book called Together, which he wrote before the pandemic. But he talks about these important issues around the history of neuroscience and how we, evolved to be better off in groups and tribes rather than alone. And he talks about the social recession that he argues we were in even before the pandemic. So really important brain science there as well. And so, yeah, check out the YouTube channel. Oh, and yeah, The Investigators on Netflix. I can't wait to watch Emily in Paris and Barat. These are great suggestions. So keep your laughter lists going. Like Ty said, your text threads, your funny friends on speed dial, as if that's a thing anymore. And then if you want to do some other trainings for your teams, of course, come to our other tree trainings. But we do these skill shops, like Ty said, where if you're going through something with your team, it's by nature a team builder, because maybe it's something you all are learning together, like Qigong. Maybe it's something you all already know how to do, like take breaks, but you should talk about new ways to do them. So we have a variety of things. Sometimes we do them ourselves, and sometimes we have other consultants who join us as trainers. And mostly we wanted to spend the rest of our few minutes. What is Qigong? Great question. It's it's an easier form of Tai Chi, basically. And Patrick and Joanne are septuagenarian teachers in Tacoma Park that are very experienced with both Qigong and teaching online. And so they've done some fantastic sessions with our clients, teaching the basic movements. It's like an energy-based movement, very flowing and accessible for people of all mobility levels. And it's very energetically focused and earth focused. And Joanne, who teaches, is a former nun and a protester, a member of the DC-9 who spilled her blood on DuPont's carpet protesting Agent Orange in 1968. So she's like an amazing activist with a great history of doing mediation and peace work, but also now Qigong. So that's my little spiel on Qigong. And great links of a guy eating a tarantula. I'm going to save this text thread. So those are ways to keep in touch with us on Instagram via, email, all that good stuff. Oh, Ty, I stuck this in there to remind everyone how you tortured me. Remember? You want to tell them what break you got me to take? You're on mute.
That was not torture. That helped you mentally and physically. I got Susan to do a whole body cryotherapy session. I don't know if you were having back pain at that time or shoulder pain or something, but we also did it as a stress relief as well too. Cryotherapy. We have a whole lot of wellness things that we talk about, but cryotherapy is one that is also a mood stimulator. So that was a very funny session there. I think you YouTube that, right?
I did. Well, it's on our YouTube channel. It's one of our earlier Take 5 ones. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.